What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. You guys have been fantastic. The engagement, the likes, the dislikes, we don't care. We want you to engage with us, as always. Hashtag BYP. We're brought to you from our good friends over at Played Against Sports and Scoots Liquors on this Tuesday edition of BYP. And there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. We saw the little dog pop up a little bit, so we know he's going to give us some great underdog picks going forward through the NFL season. Our guy, Jovan Alford, at Jovan 10. Check him out. Really doing some good work. FTN Bets got the Total Sports Live as well. Freelancing, that's what we like. Being your own boss, doing your own thing. But look forward to another NFL season with you, my friend.
Hey man, glad to be back on. Like you said, it's already that time of the year again, NFL season, and it's going all the way till February. So
I feel like we were talking player props, rebounds in the NBA a
very
couple
soon.
weeks ago.
Yeah, right. And we're about to do it again in the next month. It's
Absolutely.
insane.
Let's well, we got a lot of football to get into, but we'll kind of tease everything for the viewing audience. Let's dive into a little baseball from the start. And I mean, listen, you look at the NL, you look at the AL respectively. Now, a couple things. I did say this. I thought the Yanks were going to miss the playoffs. And I didn't think the Mets were going to struggle as much as they have, but the injuries sell off the trade. Okay. Took a flyer on the Diamondbacks. They've kind of faded. Cubs are kind of being sneaky right now, but we know the Phillies are going to get in. The Marlins are still there. San Diego hit or miss. But I mean, if you really think about it, in the AL, to me, I mean, it's going to be like a gunfight right now between Baltimore and Tampa Bay. And look, Tampa Bay had that ridiculous start to the season. Baltimore decided we're not gonna be the same O's anymore, right? We're not your father's
Right.
Orioles, so we're not going to be bullied. They're right there. AL West, I think, is one of the most fascinating divisions right now. Seattle, Houston, and then Texas is a game out. And then in the NL, part of me, I know people, they have this gut, this thought where if the Phillies, they're going to get in, but if they can start to get the bats alive, and here we go, some magic that we saw last October, I'm not so sure about that. I think it ultimately comes down to the Dodgers and the Braves, pretty much the two best teams in the NL. I don't think the NL Central, whoever comes out of that, is really going to pose a threat. But let me get your thoughts first on the NL East. Obviously, Atlanta's running away with the division, but you got the Phillies right there, and they've kind of been hit or miss all season long, right? Just when you think you can figure out the team, i.e. Aaron Nola, you can't. So what's your overall thoughts right now as the Phillies as we're coming down to the stretch run in the baseball season?
I think for them, what kind of catapulted them to where they're 15 games, 14 games over 500 was that incredible August, like that August where everybody was waiting for not so much the bottom of the order, right? Because we knew that, the Stotts and the Bohms, they were going to get their hits, the Marshes, right? Those guys have been, for the most part, we want to be real, been carrying the lineup for a good long stretch. It was, what will your top five guys do? Can they all heat up at the right time? And I think that's what we saw right in August. Everybody heating up. Castellanos, he had a rough start to the second half after a good first half. He started to pick it up. Schwarber somehow has 40 home runs and like 39 singles or something like that. The most interesting case in baseball. Harper, a tremendous August, starting to look like the guy that we sort of saw last season. Trey Turner, after the ovation, he's been a whole different, person, which
by the way, not to cut you off real quick, I don't buy into any of that crap. You want to boo the frigging guy, boo the frigging guy. I don't care. And by the way, I know he's on paternity list, so best of luck with that. But, I'm seeing on Twitter, it's the 9th-month anniversary that he signed 300. I don't give a crap about that. Boo, applaud, wipe his fanny. Who cares, man? Come postseason, be the Trey Turner that we think you can be.
Yeah, no, for real. And I think that's what the Phillies are hoping, right? They're hoping that those bats that showed up in August, can they show up in September? Yeah. And then if you can, whoever you play in October, can you show up one more time? Because this team has shown, like I said, these last few series that they can pack on runs. They can do it in a hurry, in a blitz, and just hit a 3-run home run. It's a whole new ball game. But the question is, it's going to be starting pitching, and more importantly, it's going to be that bullpen.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great point. By the way, you mentioned that because, me being a Yankees fan for so many years, it's feast or famine with the home run ball, right? I mean, they're a story for conversation for a different day. But Schwarber, to me, I can't. It's almost like Dave Kingman, like for the older audience that tunes in once in a while here, right on BYP. 40 home runs. He's batting 193. He's got 89 runs. And oh, by the way, 96. This guy's got more strikeouts than hits, and he's probably going to top his career high in home runs, which was 46 that he hit last year with the Phillies.
Yeah.
He already got 40. So I mean, he has, when he's up to the plate, and I'm not trying to compare the two because obviously he's a much more productive and slugger, but he reminds me every time he steps up to the plate of, the old Matt Stairs, right? It's
Yep.
like feast or
Or
famine
famine.
sometimes. Now,
Right.
again, his numbers dwarf, but we just go back in folklore with Stairs, and you just had a feeling he's either going to strike out or he's going
Or
to
he's going to
crack a
send one out the
bomb.
park.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's perfect to say with Schwarber. Like he's going to have games where he strikes out multiple times, but then he's going to have games like he had, or on Monday night where he has 3 walks
Yep.
and a home run, and he's just like, when he's locked in. Even when we saw in the postseason, like he had a couple moments in the postseason where he was just locked in,
Yeah.
crushes a home run off of Darvish, and then hits the home run in the World Series. Like when he's on, but when he's off, it just almost is like a dramatic domino effect to that Phillies lineup.
They've got San Diego on the West Coast tonight. Lorenzen's pitching, which is interesting. And I think San Diego's minus 120. This kid, right? When he comes over, and then obviously he pitches, he tosses the no. So I pulled it up, threw 127 pitches in that no hitter. Next start got rocked, didn't even last 4. I think it was three and a third, 3 2/3 innings, 8-7 loss to Washington. No decision after that. And then he got the win against the Angels. So they're relying really on, his ability to eat innings.
Yep.
Right? Because we know the game come postseason time, everyone knows this that follows and watches baseball. You want to shorten up the game, man. You want to get to the pen as fast as possible. But be that as it may, if you can get a starter out there, and I think Nola's also, I can't stand saying it because I personally like Aaron Nola. Everyone thinks I'm
me too.
I'm not an Aaron Nola hater. He's not that guy. It's like when the lights are off, she's the sexiest, most gorgeous looking brunette. But then all of a sudden, if I got to turn them on a little bit, not so much. I mean, it's just, I can't figure it out, right? I mean, he'll give you 8 strong, 4 hits, 1 run, get the W, and then he'll come back and he won't even last 4 1/3, 5 innings. So he's such an enigma, but they're going to have to count on him. They're going to have to count on Lorenzen. They're going to have to count on their bulldogs, so to speak. And that scares me a little bit because if they go south, the bullpen worries me.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. Definitely, the bullpen definitely worries you because right now, like the probably only pitcher you have confidence right now is Zach Wheeler, who always looks like he's ready to take the ball. And even when we go back to the World Series in Game 6, he wanted to stay in that moment and didn't shy away from it, right? Nola, like you said, he has good moments, but then he'll have the moments where he's giving up a ton of home runs, which has been one of the most ridiculous things we've seen this season. Like you look at the other pitchers that are up there giving up bombs. Like we're talking like he's up there with, Kopech. He's up there with Kyle Freeland. I mean, Gomber. Like these are not,
they're not household names. They're not all-star
right.
level, great stuff caliber.
Right, exactly. So him doing that's not good, but you hope that, maybe, getting back Ranger Suarez, maybe he can turn around in the form because you saw what he was able to do down the stretch last year. Even in the postseason, coming in being a reliever, which I think is also probably going to help this team too, right? Lorenzen right now is eating innings, but maybe there's a chance we see him go into the bullpen just because of the innings that he's logged, between the Tigers and now with the Phillies. So you're hoping that you're probably stacking your rotation with Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Taiwan Walker,
Walker's
and then
pitch. He hasn't pitched bad. He's had his
no,
moments.
he hasn't. And one thing I do give Taiwan Walker is he'll have that inning where it gets a little shaky,
Yep.
but he just always battles. He's
Yeah.
always battling. He's not giving up. Like, oh, give up a home run, everything just starts
Yep.
just unwinding everywhere. No, he still battles. So I think you roll out those four, and then you're leaning. You have guys like Lorenzen in the bullpen, Christopher Sanchez, who has been probably one of the more consistent, pitchers they've had in the second half. From a guy that was in Lehigh Valley not too long ago. So they got options. It's just going to be how Rob Thompson is going to kind of manage who is going to go where and what they're going to do in the playoffs if they get there.
Yeah, I still think Atlanta and the Dodgers are clashing in the NLCS. What's really interesting is you look at run differential in the NL. There's, the litanies, the log jam of wildcard teams, right? In the NL,
Right.
3 of them only are positive in the run differential. The Cubs, the Phillies, and the Padres, who are beyond inconsistent for all that talent. Atlanta top to bottom, man, when you look at their lineup and you've got 4, 5, 6 guys that are cracking 25 plus home runs. It's like Baltimore.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, over in the AL. Now, let me ask you this before we go quickly to the AL and then a little NFL. Right now, who's your NL MVP? Mine is Mookie Betts.
Yeah, for me, that's where I'm leaning to. And I know a lot of people say, well, you got to take Acuna because he's got 32 home runs. He's got 63 stolen bases. But, stolen bases are up across the board everywhere.
Yes, they are.
Because pitchers can't throw over multiple times and the bags are bigger. But I got to say the Betts just because, and this is no discredit to Ronald Acuna, but look at the lineup that he plays in, right? Look, Matt Olson leads the league in home runs. He's tied, I think, with Ohtani. Yeah. Right, 44 home runs. 44. And then he has Austin Riley, who's what? I think he has about 30. He's cracking home runs. Michael Harris. I think Eddie Rosario has about 20.
Man, Dodgers aren't. I pulled it up. Smith's got 17. Martinez is a DH 25. Freeman 25. Betts 38. Outman 17. Muncie's got 32. I mean, they hit 213. I mean, these teams, I love playing the over with some of these guys, but I just think Mookie Betts, I feel as though if he went, I feel he's underrated or maybe
underappreciated. I agree with you. I think he's definitely underappreciated. Like when we think about like all-star caliber players or players you want to put in that star category, it's kind of like you don't mention him because he doesn't, I guess, play with that flair that some guys play with, where it's like the theatrics, the swag. Right. But he has his own. He had his own, swag, and he just get it done. Like people forget what he was able to do when he was with the Red Sox. He was a pretty good player, and he's carried it over, over to a lineup that that needs him.
Tuesday edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones here. Jovan Alford, kind enough to join us on this Tuesday. Don't forget, check out the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q, hashtag BYP, at Rich Q on Twitter. Just pulling up the AL. Baltimore, Toronto. Look, Minnesota, they're pulling away, but they've always had pitching. That's why they always win games on the road, even though this year it's kind of an aberration. They're better at home. But man, that West, Seattle, Houston defending World Series champs, Texas out of nowhere, a game back. I think everyone's going to wait to see the other shoe drops if Baltimore gets bounced early. Tampa Bay had that great start, but how did they have that great start? Guys you never heard of were hitting friggin' home runs, and their pitching staff, their ERA was like at $1. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Who do you see coming out of the AL?
It's tough. It's really tough. I mean, if I had to maybe say,
see, Seattle to me, I don't trust those arms. Houston's got the veteran pedigree. We know that. Texas, I can't comment too much on Texas because I haven't watched Texas a lot. I know they're a good team and I know they have a good lineup.
They got the arms. They got the arms. They got Scherzer.
Yeah, what you want.
But everybody else outside of that, it's like, can you depend on John Gray? Can you depend on
good lineup,
Andrew? Right, the lineup is and that's you got to pitch around Garcia and Simeon and Seager, who all those guys could be in the AL MVP conversation if it wasn't for Ohtani. I mean, they have sluggers all up and down that lineup, so it's tough. I mean, if I had to choose, I think it's somebody. I can't make a definitive team, but I think it's somebody out the West, just because those teams are just. I mean, they're battle tested, and they're going to
Sure.
be playing each other like down the stretch too, as we get closer to the end of the season, and I think that'll kind of like shake things up. Baltimore, I think, is a great story from where we kind of saw them make their rise last year into
100%.
this year. But
100%.
the thing that worries me about Baltimore is pitching,
Yeah.
right? They don't have that standout arm. In Tampa Bay, they don't have McClanahan. There's no Rasmussen. They got Glass now, but can you depend on that offense
Right. Right.
to get going? Because remember, they had a stretch, I think, in July, where the offense was just not doing nothing, where they
No.
weren't scoring 0 to 1
They
runs a
had such
game.
that hot start, and then all of a sudden you start to see leaking a little bit of oil. But you're right, they weren't able to manufacture and scratch out runs. I mean, they were blowing everyone out right early on. They were winning 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, and again the pitching was backing them.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, I want to and hopefully we can double up later in the week on BYP to kind of dive into more of the week one NFL lines. But the season obviously kicks off Thursday. Kansas City defending Super Bowl champs against Detroit. You know, there's so many different storylines, right? Can the Eagles get back? You know, Dallas making the move for Lance. Is Prescott on the hot seat? Is Wilson on the hot seat in Denver? You got Sean Payton. You got some quarterbacks in different different places, I should say. Pardon me. Aaron Rodgers, all the friggin' hype. It does remind me of Cleveland a couple years ago where they fell flat on their face. But do you have, in the back of your mind, if you look at some of these win totals and some of these futures, do you have a sense of where you want to go? We're about 48 hours away from official kickoff. Before, like I said, later in the week, if we do some week one lines, do you have kind of an idea of where you're going to go? Anything that stands out, or maybe something that's a little outside the box thinking, team wise, win total?
In terms of win totals, I don't really have I don't think I have many win totals that I'm looking for. And looking for this season. I think for me, the biggest one that stood out to me, which I caught early, was the Packers to win the North at 5-1. I feel like that, for as much hype as everybody puts on Detroit, which is warranted, right? They kind of proved themselves, and showed like, hey, they could be a force to be reckoned with. 9-8, beat the Packers in the last season. Add Jamar Gibbs. Gets
Got to
Gardner
see second year
Johnson.
from Goff, though. They're still
Right.
talking about that new contract.
Right. That's the thing, right? Can Jared Goff stay consistent and do what he did last year? Chicago, I think, is on the rise. I think they did right by Justin Fields, giving him some pieces, but
Weapons.
defensively, cannot trust them to do what can they improve from last year? Because remember, last year they was not being able to stop the run. They could not score. They
And the
were
kid was
giving up
running for his
points.
life, the offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line.
Let me interject. Let me go this route then. I think the Cardinals are getting ready to implode. I think it's buyer's remorse with Kyler Murray. I looked at the numbers. I looked at the money. I looked at the cap hit. I'm hammering the under with their win total. I don't think this team is even going to win 4 games.
No,
I don't. That's Arizona. I was looking at them. I think Tennessee takes a step back. It pains me to say this. I actually think I might fade the Giants. I think the Giants are going to take a little bit of a step back. I think they overachieved. That's what I look for. You mentioned the Lions. Everyone and their mother is jumping on who? The Lions and the Jets, right?
Yep.
I'm not high on the Bears, man. I'm not. I mean, Minnesota should win that division with Captain Kirk. I'm a Captain Kirk guy. They should.
They should. But remember last year.
Who are you telling? I mean, I had them going to the Super Bowl. Now, don't get me wrong. I had no problem with them losing the wild card. I think I had Cousins as MVP. How about Jacksonville?
I think this could be the year Jackson. Well, obviously they won around last year. I mean, I think they should win this division. I think
How about
they
MVP?
should win.
Would you go Trevor Lawrence MVP?
Ooh. I mean,
Get some great value, man. And that division stinks.
It does, and he'll be able to stat pad against some of those teams in there. He
And who
has the
did he get
weapons.
this year that wasn't playing last year?
He gets Calvin Ridley, so he gets a bona fide number
That's
one to
right.
play with Christian Kirk, who did a great job of being a number one, but more
And
suited
Ingram's catching the
to be
freaking
the
ball in
number.
Jacksonville. He's got
And he's
hands.
healthy. And he's healthy. That's the good part. So I mean, Lawrence for MVP is not a bad choice just because he's that guy that, all right, he first year wasn't great because Urban Meyer just wasn't a good head coach. He finally gets a good head coach that knows how to develop and to put into young quarterbacks. You start to see the growth. So it could be because, I mean, but it's going to be tough because the AFC is just tough, right? You got to think for him to be in the MVP conversation, Jacksonville has to be top 3 seed in the AFC.
If they win 10 games and he puts up ridiculous numbers and they win a division, listen, the AFC North is going to be a dogfight.
Yes.
Right? AFC East is going to be a dogfight. I mean, it's almost like throw a dart. I'm seeing some odds makers and some of the win totals. Some guys are projecting that the Pats are winning 10, losing 10, Miami out, Buffalo out, the Jets in. That's my look, but don't touch.
Yeah.
No, I'm not too sold right now on grabbing 3 teams coming out of that division because they're going to beat the hell out of each other, just like the North. So really, who's going to be the threat, say, to the Jags in their division?
Maybe Tennessee on a good day, but again, you don't know. Yeah. That all comes down to which Ryan Tannehill you're going to get.
How many wins you have the Eagles?
Eagles, they won 14 games last year? I'm going to come down a little bit. I think they probably won about 12 this year. Come down a little bit. I think last year was just such a not an anomaly, but guys are able to stay healthy. Defense was just mauling on guys, strength of schedule, all that stuff. I think they'll at least be a 12, 13 win team. I think they'll at least get to that number.
Yeah, because what happens too, you get film on these guys second time around. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, he got paid. He's an extremely talented quarterback. I mean, to me, you can argue top 5. Right. It's so subjective. Right. People get so bent out of shape with these power rankings and top tiers. And Lloyd Vance and I were doing our top tiers and our second tiers. I'll tell you this, I have I've got Goff. I don't know why everyone's so high on the Rams, man. They're an old banged up team.
But I think a bunch of young players.
Yeah, well, the core guys are old, getting older.
Yeah.
Is to clarify. And Stafford, they sold their soul. And, these comments coming out by his wife, that's not the best thing. A little pillow talk there, right? Sweeten the pot. But Goff, Mac Jones, I think, is going to just suck up the joint in New England. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think the hoodie might be done after this year, by the way.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because his track record since Brady just drafting players just in general and just bringing in free agents haven't been great at all. And it starts with the quarterback. They weren't able to find that Aaron Parent, and Mac Jones haven't been that guy. And I think we kind of noticed that even back when his rookie year, where they had that infamous Buffalo game where they said, hey, we don't want you to throw the ball at all because of the win.
But remember, too, who was the OC? His rookie year, he was an alternate on the Pro Bowl. They had McDaniels.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
But then he turned around to Patricia. Joe Judge, let me just,
So maybe he bounces back with Bill O'Brien. Maybe.
Second time around for O'Brien. Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean,
the jury's still out. That's the
exactly,
question.
Man. The jury is still out. Cincinnati, Kansas City, the Chargers, would I take a flyer on Burrow, Herbert, MVP? I think the MVP, we know it's pretty much 99.9. It's always a quarterback. I believe it comes out of the AFC because they're just, look at the quarterbacks in the AFC, man.
Yeah.
And now I forget, you got to throw Mr. Rogers in there too.
Yeah. Rogers, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow. I mean, Tua. I mean, the list goes.
And I'll tell you who I think is going to really make a nice jump this year. Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Because they showed, and I don't think people realize this, they won Pickett went 6-2 out of the last 9 games because he missed the one game with injury. 6-2
coach gets most. No, they don't lose, have losing seasons. And now you got a quarterback stepping into year number 2, and he's got a ridiculous
added
offense.
players to add playmakers to the defense, draft Joey Porter Jr. to play outside
Yeah,
with Patrick Peterson on the other side. Yeah.
yeah. Listen, it always fascinates me because we always think definitively, this team, and now obviously with the extra wild card, 7 teams, and you always think it's going to be the usual suspects, but somewhere along the way, Washington's another team. I got hammered for saying this. I think the enemy's gunning for Ron Rivera's job, and I looked at their schedule, and even if the kid Howe plays well, and they're 2-5, 3-4, 1-6, whatever. And the kid's putting up numbers, that speaks to the enemy, right? Because now you're bringing him in, and there's more pressure on the enemy because he's not under Andy Reid's shadow anymore, right? So, Rivera, to me, I just think, and I say it tongue in cheek, is dead man walking unless they win 10 games. Now, maybe he gets a free pass because of new ownership. I don't know, but I just feel as though the enemy is kind of like peeking out of the blinds there, just waiting. And I can't blame him, right? I can't blame him, but I already saw the cracks when you've got starters kind of barking to Rivera about how they're being coached or not coached up, and the tone from the enemy. And then Rivera kind of had to walk back his comments. To me, I'm like, what do I do at Washington this year? Because I'm going one way, but it seems like everyone quietly is saying they're going to win 9-10 games and win a division.
That's hard to do because the division is tough. I mean, Washington for them to even go 3-3, that means they have to beat the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants either in Washington, which is
win your divisional games,
and then on the road.
Yep.
Do you trust Washington to go down to Dallas and beat Dallas, or to go to Jersey to play the Giants against Daboll and Wink Martindale? I don't.
And that's one of the other reasons, by the way, you talk about the schedule. I don't like the Giants because 7 out of their first 10 games are on the road, and they've got 3 games in 11 days. So I think their offense will be able to move the ball. Like I said, realistically, Daniel Jones, 3,800 plus yards, 25 plus touchdowns. Give me 300 to 400 rushing yards, 5 to 6 on the ground. In today's NFL, with his athleticism and talent, now you're talking 30-something plus total touchdowns and over 4,000 total yards. That's doable. I'm not asking a lot. I'm really not. It's just,
right.
We saw this, right? Sometimes a team jumps real quick. Remember the first year of McDermott, the Bills went to the playoffs, but they didn't have Josh Allen. Then they had Josh Allen, or they actually were a better team, pardon me. Then they had Josh Allen. They missed the playoffs in the second year. So I guess the point with the Giants is they exceeded expectations, and they won ugly games. The schedule was favorable as well to jump out, and it's going to be a little more tougher this season for them. So, but do you have one bold prediction, or you want to hold off till later in the week?
Bold prediction? No, I don't have a bold prediction yet. Not yet.
All right, you get a 24-hour grace period when we do our week 1 picks. We'll have some fun. I know you're probably going to do a ton of player props too, right?
Yeah. I'm waiting for them to be loaded up across the sports book, so we'll see what's peeking out there. I think I do have one. I do have one player prop that I did play already.
Go ahead.
What is it? Brian Robinson anytime touchdown against the Cardinals. I just don't like that Cardinals team. And then
I think he might be the first coach fired.
Yeah. I mean, you look how he just gutted that team, and you trade offensive lineman that was on the team last year. You trade Isaiah Simmons for a 7th round pick.
That's right.
Which was, great move by the Giants. I think that's a tremendous move to, just, hey, Isaiah Simmons, we want you to just play linebacker, blitz. Like, that's what you can do. Just go ahead and do it. But I don't like that Cardinals team. And I think I wrote this just like, if Jack Del Rio and company and Ron Rivera can't just blow out this team and like shut them out, then we have more questions about the Commanders than we probably should.
That's 100. That's a really good fair point. So hopefully the audience picked on that. All right, my friend, we'll do a week 1 later in the week if you have a couple moments to make time for me, because we always love your player props. and we always like to go back and forth. But it's great to have you back on, man. Again, everyone give Jovan
Same.
a follow on Twitter at Jovan10, FTN Bets, and of course, TotalSportsLive.com. We look forward to having his insight on throughout the NFL season. And we're going to blink and we're going to talk about the Sixers and James Harden. So, all right, brother. We'll talk later in the week, man. Always appreciate a couple moments. Thanks for jumping on BYP.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
All right.